Fox News host Brian Kilmeade suggested simply killing homeless people. And why would that be something that a Fox News host suggests? Well, to some degree, we are seeing a great disinhibition. I'm going to explain that in a moment. Let's take a look at the clip of what he had to say.
Billions of dollars to mental health and the homeless population. A lot of them don't want to take the programs. A lot of them don't want to get the help that is necessary. You can't give them a choice. Either you take the resources that we're going to give you, or you decide that you're going to be locked up in jail. That's the way it has to be now.
Or involuntary lethal injection or something. Just kill them.
Yeah, Brian, why did it have to get to this point?
Right. I would say this. We're not voting for the right people. In North Carolina, wake up.
So Brian Kilmeade is floating involuntary lethal injection for people living on the street. His co-hosts barely flinch and they just keep going. Think about what that means. We've got a host of the most watched right-wing network saying that the solution to poverty and to mental illness is state-sanctioned murder. No outrage, no accountability, other than a bad apology. And to in a sense, this was so bad that Fox News even made him apologize. Take a look at the apology.
In the morning, we were discussing the murder of Irina Zaruska in Charlotte, North Carolina, and how to stop these kinds of attacks by homeless, mentally ill assailants, including institutionalizing or jailing such people so they cannot attack again. Now, during that discussion, I wrongly said they should get lethal injections. I apologize for that extremely callous remark. I'm obviously aware that not all mentally ill homeless people act as the perpetrator did in North Carolina, and that so many homeless people deserve our empathy and compassion.
Why is it that this is going on? There is a great disinhibition taking place here, and it comes from the top. The disinhibition when the President of the United States says, we're just going to federalize and militarize. Wow, I did not expect to struggle with that one. Militarize Washington, D.C. It's justified because Trump said it is. We're going to roll through the streets and oppress and suppress. So, of course, if you're a Fox News host, you go, let's go even further. We see this tragic instance of gun violence, the assassination of Charlie Kirk. By the way, there were 20 other shootings on that day. They got relatively little attention, but okay, we had a day with 21 shootings, might have been 25, might have been 30. And they, to a degree, now have said it's open season on liberals. And so, of course, Brian Kilmeade is disinhibited. And this, by the way, the specifics of lethal injection, this all has a very ugly history. States like North Carolina forcibly sterilized poor people into the 1970s. Hitler admired American race laws when he designed his system. And so we like to pretend that there's nothing American about Brian Kilmeade's rhetoric. And I would argue there shouldn't be anything considered American about that. But it unfortunately is sort of part of the ugly side of America's DNA. And Kilmeade still wants it to be part of it, I guess. Now, here's the other piece of this. This is kind of where our system will naturally drift when you commodify survival. Capitalism, in its most extreme forms, treats housing, healthcare, and food as products that you earn. And if you haven't earned them, you don't get them. Now, you might say, David, that sounds like socialist rhetoric. No, you all know I'm not a socialist. But if you look at social democracies, countries that are capitalist countries, but they are regulated, and they ensure that no one falls too low when it comes to standard of living. Social democracies, which are capitalist countries, again, I repeat it because people seem to forget, they say, we have a market economy. If you want to sell some kind of expensive basketball sneaker for $200, you can do it. But we are going to look at certain things, housing, healthcare, maybe even food, as things that just everybody deserves. We are a better society and everyone has more dignity when everybody has a place to live. And if you can't afford a place to live, you don't get punished as if it's a personal failing. The logic of inject the homeless with lethal injection is that if you don't have a home, it's a personal failing and you deserve some kind of punishment. Now, I am, on a personal level, The whole like, I like working hard, I want to build something, I don't want help from others. On a personal level, I identify with that. But I also recognize that my circumstances, which I had no involvement in creating, allowed me to be in a position to do that. And so even if that resonates with me, I still believe in a strong social safety net. There are a lot of these people on the right who go, well, I was able to just figure out how to be successful and afford a home and food and healthcare and whatever. Therefore, anyone should be able to do it. And if they don't, it's their fault and the government should do nothing to help. Put aside for a moment that from a fiscal perspective, it's actually better just to pay for these things than to incur the costs of people not having homes and not having healthcare and not having food, which makes them desperate, which raises crime and causes social costs. Forget about that for a second. I don't know if they care about that. Why can't we consider that just because we were in a position to do something, others may not have been? Why can't we imagine that? Anyway, this is like social Darwinism dressed up as business casual. And if you follow this logic to the extreme, you get what Kilmeade said, which is like, hey, we found some unproductive people by our definition of productivity. Why don't we just eliminate them? So I started the show by saying the cruelty isn't a bug. It's not a bug, it's a feature. And it's also the business model. And I don't believe that Fox airs this sort of stuff by accident. This is how they keep people glued to the screen. And the more shocking, the better. The more dehumanizing, the better. Kilmeade was apparently forced to apologize. He's not going to be punished. He'll probably get a ratings bump. And in Trump's America, saying the unsayable isn't a career-ending scandal. It's sort of like a resume builder. Wow, Kilmeade's got some edgy stuff. We often see, and this is, we get back to retribution and violence leading to more violence. You often see over the last 150 years, dehumanization right before violence. And so if there are people willing to say this out loud, lethal injection for homeless people, imagine what they're willing to say or push for behind the scenes, and that's terrifying. This is a window into the authoritarian mindset. Everything is pushing them in this direction. And by the way, if you think we've forgotten about those files, we haven't.